This week on the Unamplified podcast.
Hello, Africa. Hello, people. Welcome to the Unamplified podcast. My name is Cynthia Mbamalu, your host. And as always, I have with me my amazing co-host,
Andrea, the dramatic one.
And guys, it's a new year, and I'm happy we all got to see 2024. And we said bye to 2023. And today we have two powerful guests on set today with us. I will begin with the fabulous, fantastic, amazing, what else should I add? My leader. The one and only theunamplifiedp. I'm used to calling you Fali. Yes, welcome to the Unamplified podcast.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally pull you here. You know, they say there are big masquerades and small masquerades. This one is one of the big masquerades. You know, it's to pull her. So when she finally said yes, I'm like, it's like when, you know, we're waiting for that proposal and then you now propose, person now will I be tweeting, she said yes.
Did you cry?
Just little tears of joy, you know. But it's good to have you. She's a lawyer. So she's my colleague at the bar. You know, we lawyers, learned people. You know, you will not understand that.
No,
you're
my
not
marriage, I'm a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
You're my marriage.
That's good.
I agree with you.
My marriage.
She's a lawyer. Yeah, and she's the founder of Hamu Legal. We'll talk a bit about Hamu Legal, but we have someone else who's this is like your fourth time or fifth time here.
Yeah,
he's a member of the family, the Unamplified family, Samuel Folorusho.
Thank you so much for having me, Cynthia. It's almost called C finish. It's the fourth time. So.
My friend.
Thank you.
It's because you have
me.
content. You always, I call him the dynamic Samuel.
So when you come, you don't need to ask for the Wi-Fi password.
No.
It's automatically
Automatically. I'm the one that created the password. So.
It automatically connects. But it's good to have you, Samuel. Samuel leads the digital democracy program in Yaga Africa, but you're also a techie. But I call it the dynamic guy because there's not which one you can, if it's music or dance, so you talk. If it's democracy, and you've added election observation across the continent into your profile.
You know, in Africa you have to, like we say in the methodology, you just mix the soup and taste it small. Anyone you get at that time.
At that time,
yes,
okay, it's good, and you have to be doing different things at the same time.
Exactly.
And it's amazing. We have two guests that are, you know, when we say these people are many different things, because you cannot put Fali in one box and say this is all she does. You do different things. Same way I can't put Samuel in one box and say this is all he does. And you know, interestingly, last year was it was a busy year for Nigeria. For instance, we had our general elections. There were lots of conversation around our democracy. And young people saying either I'm losing faith, I'm losing hope, or I'm tired, or I'm learning from the system. But we had conversation around digital democracy. People started talking about like digital democracy. What is it about? What can we do with that? But beyond that was also the talks around the digital economy. And the president, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, created about 10 new ministries. And one of those ministries was the Ministry of Digital Economy. And that was just more like a realization that there is a space that we need to tap into because there's a lot more potential within that state. And so today's episode, we're going to be discussing digital democracy. We're going to be talking about digital disruption in a new year and what are the things we expect to see in the new year, and if there are opportunities, if there are things we should be worried about. So let me start with you, Sadetu.
Yes.
It's a new year. From your own assessment, and what do you think we should look forward to in the digital space for the new year?
That's a great question, Cynthia. I think at the moment, Nigeria is standing at a cusp when it comes to the digital economy across Africa. And the Ministry of the Digital Economy, like you mentioned, that was created. Actually, it's been there even in the last administration, and there was a digital economy strategy since the last administration. However, there is a sort of robust action and robust awareness with the ministry, considering at the moment we have a minister who has been part of advancing and creating the Nigerian digital ecosystem for many, many years. So in terms of what do we see happening in the new year, we have a very clear blueprint from the Ministry of Digital Economy in terms of core areas that they're going to focus on. And I think one of those things they mentioned is e-government. Another thing they mentioned is advancing the skills of young people to sort of make them more hireable and more even to be able to transition to other spaces. They also talked about AI amongst other things. So for me in the new year, I expect to see an increased level of participation, not just from the private sector angle in the digital economy space, but an active participation by government within the space. But what I find very key and interesting from the Ministry of Digital Economy that I'm looking forward to, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa, is how do we increase broadband penetration? Because with internet access, the ability for young people to learn digital skills, the ability for even the government to rely on the digital tools to advance governance become almost not just easy, it's a natural thing that will happen. Because 10 years from today, we won't be saying, oh, I'm a tech lawyer or I'm a tech doctor, because technology has sort of integrated into almost every aspect of our lives. I haven't seen you in a while, but I'm sure we've seen.
Yes, true.
So that's what I'm really looking forward to in terms of how do we increase access to the internet to each and every person. Even when I'm in my village, let me be able to have this call without saying, oh, let me switch off my video. Let me be able to join the Unamplified podcast from wherever I am in the world without any hassle.
Yes, and that's a very interesting point. Issues around access, because if we deal with issues around access, we solve a lot of the problem. Plus, it creates a lot more empowerment amongst the communities. I remember before the general elections where there was a Naira redesign policy, which was a very wrong move by the last administration. But if there was one thing we a lot of people faced was, okay, now we don't have access to the Naira, the physical cash. A lot of people had troubles with even online transfers. So for everyone that thought, oh, we had the best or suitable infrastructure to manage our demands when it comes to e-transactions, that was a realization that what we thought we had, we didn't. And that when the demand increased, it created a lot of chaos. And so even the banking system had major issues managing that. And I'm going to bring in Samuel. Well, what do you expect to see in the digital space? I know you're also a techie. And so what are those expectations from either from the government or what you're hoping to see a lot more?
Okay. Yeah, thank you again for the question. And I want to just connect it to what Fali just said, where Nigeria stands currently with digital technologies and digital innovations. Because if you look at it holistically, the past year, one of the things that is more prominent now is like the introduction of 5G. Yeah, and she was talking about access. That's what 5G can do to you. Can increase telemedicine, can increase people in the village to get access to doctors remotely with telemedicine. That is if we invest in it. But let's bring it back to what your concerns about what happened last year with the currency redesign and everything. First, there is not enough incentive for digital nomads in this country. And that is what affected the banking industry because a lot of them were leaving. But there's in 2024, a lot of things will be coming up. We've seen them in a lot of technologies like artificial intelligence is going to grow more. 5G is going to grow more. Autonomous vehicles are going to be more available. So that's what we see. But what we want to see from the government is how to harness these things. I like the initiative from the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, which they've been training young Nigerians, and they have over 30,000 registrations on that portal. So we want to see what they will be able to do with that initiative. Train more young Nigerians to pick up digital skills and be able to transfer these skills and use it to affect our economy. That's what I want to see, because there's a lot of technology flying all around that we need to start tapping into. We don't just stand as a country and say, okay, these young people should just go and learn these things. And before you know, another country is taking them. So there need to be more incentives for digital nomads, people that do these things in this country, to be able to stay.
Yeah, I like when you talked about incentives, digital nomad, because I know I can't remember where I was reading this news around investment bank in the investment sector, investment banking, and they said they are losing a lot of their talents to the West. And with an increase in migration, and when you start having a lot of your talent leaving, it creates a vacuum. And if you have more unskilled personnel staying back, it also creates a capacity deficit within the respective sector. And I think if there's one thing I'm hoping the government will look into is that issue around incentive. When you were talking, you said Ministry of Digital Economy had always been there, but a lot of, it was about who was managing it, what was the strategy, were we seeing the kinds of results we're hoping to see? Sometimes it's about who manages that sector, that quality, the leadership around the space. But if you have better leadership or good leadership, it also starts giving hope and inspiration to even those who operate within the sector. Okay, there's something here for me and I can stay back. So I'm going straight to the question around AI, because you mentioned artificial intelligence. I can't remember which book we were reading, and one of the, what was that book? I remember there was a book we reviewed, and one of the things was, what is even AI in itself is good, but it's also about how many people are ready to accept the new world where AI is a thing and is now is norm, it's part of the system, but that it also comes with its own threat. That's workforce to human capital development, to human resource in general. And I want to ask to our guests and to our co-host, are we ready for artificial intelligence in Nigeria? And are there worries? Are there things you worry about when it comes to AI?
I think in terms of readiness, it's quite difficult to determine what readiness means, because it's already here. We're already using it. We're already relying on it in many ways. It's just that how do we ensure that there is an appropriate use of it to solve our problems as Nigerians and as also Africans? And as we begin to advance because AI is a new technology, people are still understanding it. People are still trying to see how do we govern this? How do we govern this space? Because the reality is, the regulation is not going. The technology is not going to wait for the regulation. The technology is always going to be ahead of the regulation. But it's how do we harness it in a way that ensures that there is safe usage, ensures that there is no bias, because right now the advanced level of thinking and development when it comes to AI is not happening in Africa. The learning models being fed into these AI tools are not considering me and you and Sam. So it's how do we as Africans get on the table and be part of these conversations in a way that advances us. So for instance, if I'm using AI to determine for somebody to have access to a loan, I will be using certain algorithms to look at his credit history amongst other things. But the reality is, in Nigeria, if you look at my credit history, I may not have anything, but it doesn't necessarily mean I may not have access to the loan. But you may look at certain verticals. Or does he have access to Cynthia? Cynthia is a reliable person within society. She can stand in for her. So among other things, we need to be able to specifically use the AI that fits into our context and solve our own country-specific and continent-specific problems. And as we begin to design global protocols that will govern AI, we as Africans need to be part of the table. So that is why I'm sure the Ministry of Digital Economy even put out a call for research papers for people in the diaspora to sort of come and co-create what is Nigeria's AI strategy. And a previous one was also done, I think, by NITDA in the last administration, but I'm not sure what was used with it. But the reality is, when it comes to technology development, the government cannot do it on its own. The private sector and the technology people, we cannot do it on it. So there is room for co-creation. There is room for collaboration at all levels. That's the only way we can have a voice on the global stage.
Yeah, since no one talked about having a voice on the global stage and even designing models that suits our realities or takes into consideration our context, because usually that is the missing link. A lot of it's as simple as the other day I was it on YouTube. You know how they have this artificially generated subtitles if you post a video, and but you can tell that because we speak, a lot of us speak with different accents. You can tell that even as it's generated, it's not. Your words that you pronounce could be, you can have the wrong, misinterpreted. I'm sure if you've seen some of those videos, you can tell that it's also not designed to listen to our respective dialects or the ways we pronounce words.
Like Fali mentioned, so the models using in training these technologies, they don't consider African voices at all, especially in the audio. In the facial recognitions, and that's why you see a lot of people for like the last 2 years. You see a lot of people complain that facial recognition is difficult for blacks to use because they did not train it on any black face models, so they did not get database of black people to use to train these models, and that is the danger. So when you ask if we are ready, because being ready is not being able to use this technology, it's being able to have a voice. Like she said, we have to get on the table. What are we doing as a country or as a continent to say, okay, this thing that how is it? What in fact, like, we need to find out what database are you even taking from Africa that are using to using for this to train these models, because we need to know, because if we don't understand what is going into the development of these technologies, we cannot actively engage. One, we cannot even use it to the best of its ability. Two, and three, we cannot even understand the vulnerabilities. Because understanding the vulnerabilities is also key. And that's why you say concerns. Let's even, the basic of it, the traffic cams that was being installed in Abuja, for instance, there was a lot of concern and worries because people did not know. Because one, we did not manage it. We don't manage the technology. We don't own the technology. So where is this data going to? So who are the people that are in charge of this data? So that, because that is where, because that traffic cam images can now be used if I can get loans, like you said, if I can buy stuff. Like, like when you mentioned Nova Harare's book and what China was doing with technology in terms of ratings and rankings for its citizens, was, okay, if I walk into a store and I buy an alcohol, my rating drops for loan because I have money to buy an alcohol. But if I walk into a store and buy diapers, my rating increased. Yes, because they feel like alcohol is more, I'm wasting money, like I'm too,
They're
I have too
measuring
much
your
money.
level of responsibility.
Exactly. So that's so it's predictive analysis, and it can be very dangerous.
Wow, when you said, and whoever controls the data now is the powerful person.
Data, in fact, give me data. Don't give me money. Just give me data. Let me be the owner of the data. Then I'm the richest guy in the room.
Yeah, because actually that's basically, and I think that's the question we're not asking. Who manages it? How was it created? Where's the access? What are we doing with that? Yeah. And when you were even talking, I started thinking around the whole question around the data protection and what have you. Because with more AI, you also need to start thinking around how do we protect even the people, the citizens, and because at the end you also need to protect the vulnerable. But we need legal frameworks for that. But I was also thinking about creative. I know Andrea, she's a creative, right? Are there ways technology is being infused in what creatives are doing in your space? Yeah,
a lot actually. So, for example, writing. A lot of writers use AI to enhance their vocabulary. In maybe writing stories and even in their ideas. There was a competition for playwrights a friend of mine was part of. And she actually used ChatGPT to help her understand her idea. Like, she already had an idea, but she didn't know how to put it together.
So she used GPT
to conceptualize it. And it really helped her in the playwright competition. Wow. So it's very useful in a lot of ways. And I would say somehow it's also worrisome and dangerous, because there are some people who just, instead of bringing their own ideas like ChatGPT would do, they would rather just copy and paste. I would say that, for example, if she wants to write a story about mental health awareness, now you can just put it in, write me a story on mental health. ChatGPT will give you the plots, the
really?
I'll give you the plot, act 1, act 2, act 3, like that. And then some people would, rather than creatively find a way to infuse, just like you said, culture-wise, it might not be a story that would be relatable to the African culture. So instead of creatively finding a way to relate it to an African
or
child,
your
or an
context,
African girl, or woman, or man, then they would rather copy and paste, and then their originality is no longer there. It's lost. So that's my worry. But then again, it's very useful, and those who are creatives can find a way to use it to their advantage.
Yeah, because when you talked about, I saw this one of these adverts you see online, and it was something about how to solve a math equation in seconds. And I just said I don't want my child, like when I have a child, to see this, because I also think like everything that has a pro, it has a con, right?
Yes.
And some of the cons, now I'm worried that because I keep wondering, the younger generation, are they investing in solving equations based on their knowledge and even testing their capacity, or are we having a generation that is over reliant on technology? I remember I was in a meeting and we were talking about communication, and someone was selling the idea, saying, "Nah, you don't even need to stretch yourself to write, just go put it up." And I said, well, is that not creating some level of, I would like to say, laziness or laid back in a way that we now say, okay, let's have technology do everything. That's one of my worries, and I'm living it. Do you see that as a worry? That one, it affects how as individuals we even task ourselves to engage in that form of analytical thinking and even creative thinking, task our brains to get to work and produce something original. Do you think that there's that worry and fear?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Let me ask you, where did you use the quantitative you learned in class 3?
Where did I use it?
Good question.
But we last that I ended up reading law, and I chose law for a reason, so that I will not continue that quantitative.
Please
and the body
allow your children to see that video. It just shows you that the world has moved on. The skills that are required have also advanced. So maybe 20 years ago, we needed to sit down and learn the mathematics table.
And follow the steps.
But the reality is we learned that in primary 1 or 2. Perhaps somebody in nursery would have already passed that stage in his level of thinking. So what we need to do is we need to train people to prepare them for the future. But we're so stuck in our ways. I need to learn the array, which is great. I mean, I've never I still use my calculator 98%, 99.9% of the time. But certainly there is room for because I read there was a lawyer in New York who used ChatGPT to prepare his defense in court, and they gave him wrong references. So, of course, there is always room for that, but I don't think we should restrict it to the extent that we fear or we suspect. It may limit the level of analytical
thinking. If you look at this thing holistically, and you're saying, like she said, which employer is even giving you time? Due to timeline, you're telling me to produce this thing in one day.
Exactly.
And you're telling me not to rely on technology to get it done. Do you get? So timeline, output, like it's all in a comparison. Yet, like you said, yes, we don't just take it garbage in, garbage out. You don't just take whatever this technological tools give you. You still have to look at it and then refine it. So it's supposed to get you there about maybe 40%, then you do the remaining 60%. It's not supposed to do everything for you. Maybe that's the danger now. And like as we're talking about the dangers of it, so a lot of people are worried that this is going to take up my job.
Okay, there's also that thing. How does that affect the workforce and the labor?
It's just like every revolution. There was the Industrial Revolution. People were worried too. We are still here.
You say we are still here.
Yes, and that's why you have to, as a human being, you have to continue to evolve. You have to continue to learn new things, because the people that will be getting the next set of jobs are the people that can interact with these tools. The people that can use this. Yes, people that can prompt and ask the right questions. from AI, not
Yes.
not yeah.
He said it's like, alright. So basically, the message is everyone go develop yourself because
Yes,
the society is evolving
Yes.
and you cannot be left behind.
No.
So when we say leave no one behind, we also say you also ensure
Don't
you're
leave
not
yourself.
left
Behind, don't leave yourself behind.
Don't leave yourself
Don't leave
behind.
yourself.
But I'll bring you to democracy. Are there opportunities to leverage technology to expand the space, to amplify voices, and to even get younger people interested in the whole democracy conversation?
Yeah, like you asked from the beginning, that's what digital democracy is. So digital democracy is basically using technology to enhance and facilitate democratic process.
Yeah.
So that is what digital democracy is. You're supposed to use digital, take technology and add it to your democratic process. So you're supposed to use it to enhance whatever you are doing. So because technology is there to help you reach more audience, to help you document, to help you provide access to information to your citizens. Like if, for instance, plenary sessions, you can use technology.
Plenary
to
sessions where?
in Nigeria and Africa, yes, to broadcast it. People can be more involved. People can reach their legislators, submit letters, petitions, and all that. So that's what digital democracy is supposed to be. So yes, there are wide areas, and I will bring it. So I will actually praise NGOs and civil societies across Africa in the past few years of how they've infused technology into their activities. That's another form of digital democracy. It's just that now we are seeing civil society lead that instead of the government leading that.
Yeah.
That's what we say. Like for instance, during the election in Nigeria last year, we saw how we're able to use technology to provide access to polling units, provide access to people to get their permanent voters card, to provide information on in the elections, almost near real time, and how we are getting this information. So that is what it is. So there are a lot of areas, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'll bring in Fali. What do you think? Like just within this space, how can we leverage the opportunities, to promote how we engage the democratic space?
I think we've already started it in already many ways. One of the tools I feel like in Nigeria and I think in Africa we've effectively used technology is we've relied on the social media a lot. So social media has been able to sort of bring the government closer. There's this level of access that everyone feels.
Yes.
It's easy for you to reference the Ministry of Digital Communications because they are building on almost constantly communicating and engaging. So I think social media has played a very, very critical role in terms of advancing and leveraging it to use democracy. But I also do not ignore the risks that technology poses to the democratic space, in particular social media. Because we've seen in the last election in Nigeria, advent of even using AI to do deepfakes. Yes. We've also seen where we have maybe like a social media army that constantly stifle voices at the same time.
Yeah.
So there are two sides to every coin, but at the same time is us allowing the technology to advance the democratic space, recognizing the risk and seeing what can we do either as private sector or as civil society to sort of mitigate it. Because I believe deepfakes, the advent of it was from 2020. That was when it didn't make a mark in our democratic process until this 2023 general election. So in the 2015 elections, we've seen how social media was used to create a movement.
True.
So also when it comes to protests today, a lot of the protest activities have moved from the streets to social media.
Organizing
has moved to the social media space. NSAS is an example. Money was raised, awareness was created, amongst other things. So for me, I see technology tools as advancing the democratic landscape globally in a very, very large scale. But there are also potential risks, which is not the responsibility of the civil society or the private systems to consider. Government has to look at how do we open up the space, but also ensuring that the national security of the country and our democratic process is not heavily interfered with. Who is producing the technology tools we're using in our electoral processes? How are they being brought in? What audit process did they go through, amongst other things? Because very soon, this election we've seen in court, people relying on, even though papers were still brought, but references were still made to data from the BVAS. So as we continue to evolve in terms of the democratic process using technology, our electoral jurisprudence will also correspondingly advance to prepare them to be able to understand this technology, interpret it, to be able to give us the justice that we deserve or we need when it comes to, because otherwise it will be here and there.
Very, very valid. But I want to bring in Andrea, because the general elections, the last general elections was the first general elections you voted in. I know we had that discussion one time, and then you also
hi Gen Z. I knew it.
She's in the breach. She said she's in the breach. She's in the breach.
Okay.
Millennial and Gen Z, the breach. As a young person, is there something you would expect to see from the government to promote how they engage with younger people, especially leveraging technology?
Yeah, I mean, using social media is very important, like she already mentioned, because that's where you would first get young people on social media before you even think of going to the streets. Because if you even organize press conference or meetings and all of that, you hardly see young people come out. But social media, you catch them there. You get their attention on social media, especially using influencers and all of that, because young people look up to a lot of people in the social media space. Twitter, influencers on Twitter, influencers on Instagram, and
Twitter
all of
be
that.
X, Elon.
It's still called Twitter somehow. The same way we still call Nepa.
You said Nepa. That was like, you're not
They're not even switching.
Yeah.
So using these influencers on these different platforms is one way to go about it. I think they need to improve on the technologies that were already used during the last elections. It will, and once that improvement is done, they should also give awareness that this is what, and also give proper education on how it's being used, how it was gotten, and all of that, so that young people can get to understand, because a lot of young people do not really understand what was happening in the previous election with the BVAS and everything.
The use of technology, it comes with a lot of things. It comes with communication.
Exactly.
If you, especially from the part of the government, and that is where they failed heavily.
Exactly.
With the technology they introduced,
Exactly.
because they weren't communicating. Even when, so we're saying we're not expecting a perfect system. Like you said, there's no technology. Even today Google is still improving their system. So there is no perfect system. So that's why you have to communicate. So even when you are having downtime, technology issues, you have to communicate as an institution, which where I believe that's where INEC dropped the ball massively, because on the day of the election, when they knew that these issues are there, they would have issued a statement and it would have mitigated a lot.
It's like when your bank is having downtime now, they immediately send you an email to say, this is what. And for me it was very exciting. I did my registration online. I only had to go there to do the actual biometric capture. I think that alone, even if the numbers have not, the number of people that are actually voted have not significantly increased, but the number of registered voters had dramatically increased. And I think it was just the ability for technology to make it easy for everybody. It doesn't matter whether I'm in Bauchi, Abuja, Canada. I would at least do that first layer of getting on the system.
What that also helped us do was to show us the true state of our registered voters. It showed us we don't really have as much as we claim to have.
For the turnout. Because these are different arguments, and this is my argument when it comes to this. I like it because the registration part first. The fact that INEC introduced that first online registration wherever you are. I know I had friends who live in the US, in Canada, who registered online, and then they came back when they had, because it was a longer period of registration. Yeah. So one of the times they visited Nigeria, they went for their data capture, the biometric capture. But it was exciting to say that you can go online to do that. But it was not just that, you can also go and edit your information.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those who had registered previously and there were issues with your date
name.
of birth or any mistake, or even some people were male and captured as females, you could do that online and start a process to review some of those mistakes. We had people who also applied for transfer. You have moving from one location. So it was exciting. And I think a lot of people, that was one thing young people liked. Young people like technology. If you just say technology, they're excited.
They like ease.
They like
stress. No stress.
Yes,
No
I was
stress.
telling someone, I was talking to some Gen Z, and they said they don't like stress. Anything that will stress them, they're out. That's why they quit their job. Like, if I come to my job and you stress me, I'm out. And so
Mental health is key.
you see my lady. It's a mental health is key.
No, I'm just saying from what one of our guests said.
Yes,
mental health
is key. But
is.
it's key. But I think the important thing both we've heard from Andrea, from Samuel and Fally is the fact that in leveraging technology, we also need to have that adequate conversation or communication around it. Because if you make promises and you don't have adequate communication to say, these are the challenges we're having, we're working on it, and we'll deal with that. It creates that level of doubt. And the moment you lose the trust of the people, because trust is difficult to build. It takes you a longer time. And that is the dilemma the Electoral Commission is dealing with now, because there was this promise of the beavers and then the IRF. But I think also we didn't have enough communication on the beavers does this. It's to accredit you. The IRF is for this. Results will be uploaded. And then when there was an issue, it took forever for the commission to, and then it was one statement, but there was no other conversation to say, okay, let's explain what happened. And
I'm
for
telling
young
you,
people,
they won't get it. Even in my office, there was a serious argument that no, I said, you know what? It's okay. Now that is, you can have your opinion, but me, I've read it, and this is my interpretation. But I can't be the final interpreter.
yes.
So I think the communication wasn't just great, but I think overall we've done well considering where we were. 4 years ago to where we come from. So for me, I'm very optimistic. I'm very excited to what I will see in the next general election.
True.
Even the off-cycle elections that were held, IRF performed phenomenally well. I wasn't only relying to see what the TV networks were posting. I could go there and see what was going on. So for me, I'm very optimistic. I'm really excited. And I like conversations like this are being had to provide more context and clarity, which is, I think, what we should do more.
Yes, context, clarity. Because I think for a lot of young people also engage in the space, if there's one thing I'm learning from a lot of the interaction is a lot of people are not aware. There's an assumption of knowledge, so people assume they know, and they say assumption is the worst kind of self-deceit, because you're like, I know this, but you don't. And I think if there's one thing we must learn as citizens, and then for young people, is you need to educate yourself. You need to get informed, have the right information, and before you jump on anything you get on the social media, verify its accuracy. Because if it was one thing that we saw in the last election, also the spread of fake news, disinformation and misinformation was also major, and people were running with this as if it was gospel truth, and we're running the conversation. And I will pose this question to every one of us. We can sense that growing distrust in government. It seems like there's this fractured relationship between government and the people, especially young people. A lot of young people don't trust government. Andrea, you're smiling.
No, you're looking at me.
a lot of people don't trust government. I'm still young, so I will still see a lot of but not just young people. I think a lot of citizens don't trust government. There's always this distrust, but there's also that we see that there's almost we have people questioning democracy, asking, is democracy working for us? And I wanted this to be like your final message. What would be that thing you think we need to do in the new year to re-inspire faith in democracy, either leveraging technology or even just in the conversations we have? What would be that thing you think we need to start doing differently as a people, but also from the government side?
I think a lot. Once trust is broken down, there are a lot of things that could be done. But I feel like a low-hanging fruit for government. Number one is clear communication in terms of where we are, where we stand, and what we're going to do. But I think beyond even clear communication is doing things that actually touch the people, so they can feel the impact of government wherever they are. I feel like as Nigerians, we're easily governable people. We accept a lot quite easily, but I feel like once our basic social needs are being met or even seen to be met, it begins to create a level of trust and collegiality between government and the people. And I feel there's something that they used to do, I think it was in the US, I think it was during Barack Obama's presidency, this thing called We the People.
Yes.
So they had an office dedicated to just say, we're writing to the president. So I feel like our leaders need to be able to also come down to our level and see, to connect and engage. Let's meet them in hospitals. Let's meet them in mosques. Let's meet them in supermarkets. That's the only way we can feel connected to those people. If the only place I see my leader is on the TV, I don't feel like he's suffering my suffering. We're not really on the same boat, but the ability to connect with people on, very neutral grounds sort of brings this level of collegiality between us and them. And I hope that will happen.
Andrea?
Okay. Just like she said, I would still go with what she said, clear communication, and possibly using every channel possible to communicate whatever changes are being made in the government and all of that, because there's always going to be misinterpretation when there's no communication. People are going to think, government is doing something else, when really what they are doing is to favor the people. For example, the what's it called? The CCTV on the streets.
The traffic cams.
I saw on social media when in Abuja how people were saying, it's China people, they are trying to monitor us, to sell us. Is that? So many things. So a lot of people did not know what this was or what it was about. So clear communication, using different channels to the people, to not just young people, everyone, so that they understand what the government is doing, and so that trust would also build up and come back.
Some of the last words from you.
Like we all said, we've said correctly. So because
we've said correctly. We came correct.
So I want to see increased transparency, especially with the from the part of the government, because a lot, and technology can help them achieve that.
Sure.
So increased transparency will build back the confidence and the trust in people, because when people see that you're transparent, you're carrying them along. Everybody wants to be carried along. Which comes back to communication. So we want to be carried along. So if this can be effectively done from at all levels of government, because it's not, most times we tend to ignore the most important level of government, which is from the state house of assembly, councillorship, and all
from
that.
The level local government,
and straight to the Senate. So it's important that they invest in ensuring transparency, and so because we have another important election coming, because I feel like people feel like we had tensions in the last election. I bet you the next general election will be more heated. So we need to build back that confidence. And this civil societies and private sector need to come together with the government to help them build back that trust.
I totally agree with you, and I think everyone has said it. This is a conversation we need to come back. There should be a part 2 to this conversation, because there's a lot we're trying to put together within very short time frame. But if there's something I'm learning today is communication solves a lot of problems, right? If we communicate, people are aware of what's going on, then they understand better. But if there's a lot of silence, everyone is left to misinterpret or interpret what they want to interpret, and the government cannot leave that space to our individual and personal interpretations, which mostly are based on sentiment,
Yeah.
but also engaging at all levels, from the local government level, local government chairpersons, the councillors, to the state assembly, governors, to the National Assembly, Senate, House of Reps, and the president. It's beyond just Tinubu. It's about what everyone is doing at every level of government and in the arms of government at every level of government. But I think generally to young people, already we know that technology is here to stay.
Yeah.
You have to be, is it woke? What's that term now? You have to be woke in a sense. Meaning you have to build yourself to ensure that you're also developing and evolving as the space is evolving. And there is no alternative to engagement. You cannot sit back and say, I don't care about democracy, I don't care about government, because at the end, the policies that come from government affect every one of us. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been an amazing conversation. Just discussing digital democracy in the new year. And I'm really looking forward to an amazing 2024, not just as an individual. I'm sure we're all hoping for that, but that that's those policies we've been seeing from government, we can start seeing the result in the new year, and that a lot of citizens would start, rebuilding their hope and their faith in our system. I believe in Nigeria. I'm sure you all believe in Nigeria.
We do.
You believe in Nigeria.
We believe in Nigeria.
And we believe in Africa.
We believe in Africa.
And so because we believe in Nigeria and we believe in Africa, the message is, please, we can't lose faith. We can't lose hope in our democracy. We can't lose faith in Africa. We can't lose faith in... We're laughing now. I hope you're not planning to jump anytime.
That was what I wanted to answer. Are you trying to tell us not to jump?
You're not Japan.
I'll leave it to Andrea to shout out to our audience and listeners.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you drop a comment in the comment section. Tell us what you think about the digital economy.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think about digital democracy. And also make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you also listen to us on all our platforms. Thank you so much.
We bring you interesting content every Wednesday. And to my amazing guests, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Sadetu, I'm used to calling you Fali.
It's okay.
Sadetu,
They're all
thank
my
you for
names.
spending time with us. Samuel Folorusho, thank you for coming back to the show. We will always bring you back. You're part of the family already.
Thank you for having me.
And to the crew behind the scene, thank you so much for being part of the show. And you know how we always do, we cheers to Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're on, you're amplified.
amplified.
Cheers to Africa.
Cheers to Africa.
Africa is great.
Africa is great.